Welcome to the Outlier's Journey, where we'll explore the human stories of inspiring paths to success in the African American and Caribbean immigrant communities. My name is John Seaton, the son of Caribbean immigrants who grew up in Brooklyn and managed to navigate my way to a successful career in tech. So I've always been fascinated with folks who manage to break away from their circumstance and somehow achieve more than their peers. In our discussion today, we will uncover those turning points in our guests' lives so that we might enlighten and inspire others, especially those out there listening that may find themselves in a similar circumstance. Today, I want to welcome Edilsa LeGrier, an Afro-Latina, to the podcast. We'll explore Edilsa's journey from Panama to what I like to call pre-gentrified Brooklyn. All the way to Cisco in her current role as a senior systems engineering leader. We will uncover in this conversation that her journey was not an easy one. She had to actually physically fight, yes, throw some hands to get where she is today. Edilsa has been described as a unicorn. Why? Well, the thing about unicorns is you don't see a lot of them. And unfortunately, you don't see a lot of Afro-Latinas in leadership in tech. She studied mechanical engineering at Binghamton University, achieved a Bachelor's of Applied Science from the University of Maryland, and an MBA from Georgia Institute of Technology. Now, those are all fantastic credentials, but what I'm most impressed with is her extensive list of organizations that she volunteers with to help kids escape their circumstance and excel. Organizations such as the National Urban League, Girls Inc., and Year Up, just to mention a few. So with that, Edilsa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So I wanted to begin with the here and now, and then we'll circle back to where it all started. So tell me a little bit about yourself, work, family, where you live.
Oh, absolutely. So I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. That is home. It's been home for over 16 years now. I'm pretty excited that we live in a home that we can call our own here in Lithia Springs, Georgia. I am married with 2 children. Jordan is 15. She's a sophomore in high school. And Cameron is 14, and he's a freshman in high school. My husband, Andre, and I moved here after we decided looking for homes in New York City wasn't going to be very affordable for us. So we decided to migrate to the South like a lot of other New Yorkers looking for affordable housing. I work for Cisco Systems, as you stated. I am a senior systems engineering leader for the Cisco Unified Collaboration Team. And I manage a team of what we call technical systems engineers, and we sell collaboration services.
All right. So it sounds like to me that you've achieved a significant level of success. As I tell everybody else who's on this podcast, the journey isn't over.
Absolutely.
How would you define success?
Wow. I think success is what you make it, right? It's personal for everyone. For me, I attribute my success to making sure that I can give back. As you stated earlier as well, one of my greatest achievements is the ability to be able to give back and to know that there are people following behind me and looking up to me. That's my greatest achievement, and that's my greatest measure of success, when I know that I can turn around and lift someone else up and listen to their story once they achieve what their definition of success is.
I like that answer about giving back and lifting other people up. That's one of the motivations for doing this podcast, is making people aware that there's others in their situation and there's a path to success for everyone. Mm-hmm. And every story is a little bit different.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the story. Let's go back to the beginning where it all began. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Oh, well, let me start from what I could remember most. And my memories are really fond and very, I would say, visible to me because they're so, they so defined who I am today, right? So I was born in a city of Colón, Panama. So it's what you would call the, I guess you would call that the ghetto or the the barrio of Panama. And people there usually don't get out. People there are usually stuck, and it's a very, very poverty-stricken area of Panama. And so for me, I remember I was being very young. My mom had to leave me behind with my two oldest sisters to come to the States to make a better life for us, of course. And so the memories of Cologne, Panama for me are pretty destitute, is what I would say.
Mm.
We were living with an aunt. My sisters and I, my brother was living with my grandmother, and my other sister, my oldest sister, was living with her godmother. And so we all had to be spread out because my mom, of course, couldn't put 5 kids in the hands of one person, right? So that requires care and feeding for 5 children. And so I remember that being at a very young age, being torn apart from my siblings and so desperately wanting to be next to them, but knowing that they weren't far, right? We all lived in Cologne, so we weren't far from each other at all.
Yeah, that's a common story in a lot of larger Caribbean families where, they had to distribute the kids amongst family.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What led me to New York City, of course, my mom and dad both got sponsored. And I think you're very familiar with that too, where a lot of Caribbean people get sponsored in either by an employee or an employer and or family. And so that's what happened with my parents. My dad was sponsored by his uncle who worked for a construction company to go to New York City and help him in that business. And my mom was then later brought on by that same uncle, and he found her employment being a domestic worker for a family in Long Island in New York City. So that's what led my parents to New York. And they did that for us, for the 5 children. And then I was the first to go to New York out of all the 5 siblings because I got hit by a car. I don't think I shared that with you, John.
No.
So I was crossing the street of Panama City, going to school or coming from school, trying to be a big girl. And I may have been like 4 or 5 years old at the time. And we went to school really early there. I was definitely 5. So crossing the street, and of course, bam, I get hit by a car. I was in a coma. And after that happened, and I don't remember how long I was in the coma. I think it had to be about a month or so. My mom said, well, no one's watching after my baby, so I have to do what I have to do to get her up here. And so she did. So I was the first one to come to New York City from the siblings. And so that's what led me there. The fact that I was the youngest and not being very well looked after. Of course, you can't expect a 10 and 11-year-old sibling to kind of really look out for, a rambunctious, curious 5-year-old, right? So.
Yeah, so we can't skip over the fact that your mother left Panama and all her kids came to the States, I imagine, looking for a better life so that she can provide for you guys, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. She that was on her agenda. She left all her siblings and all her family behind to, go to the States to make a better life for us, because one thing I remember my mom says, and she says it to this day, if I had stayed where we were, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
I like that statement.
Absolutely. It's such a powerful statement. And I remember that. And I think I tell that to my kids to this day. If we had stayed in New York, we wouldn't be where we are either, right? We're making a better life for you guys and growing up in the suburbs of Georgia. So it's pretty familiar. It's very close to home.
So your mother came up. What was she doing when she came up?
Yeah, she was a domestic worker. She worked for a family caretaking, pretty much nanny, housekeeper, cook, so doing all the domestic responsibilities of a wealthy white family in Long Island.
Right.
And she did that for a while until she found a job at one of the hotels, and she worked for the Sheraton Hotel pretty much her entire life. I don't know how she did it, being a maid for all those years in New York City, but that was her career.
Yeah, you do what you got to do, right? And what about your father? Yeah,
my father always, he's a genius at construction. Like I think that man could probably build you a skyscraper at this point, but he's always done construction. He's always been pretty handy. And he pretty much can build anything. So he worked with his uncle for a number of years, and then he branched off and did business for himself as a contractor in New York City, doing various odds and end jobs for different people, but mostly working for his uncle.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is it fair to say that your parents did not have the opportunity to go to college?
Absolutely not. I don't remember exactly what year my dad went to elementary school until I believe it's
Hmm.
either fourth or fifth grade. When he was in Panama, his mom was remarried, and he decided that he didn't want to live under her rules anymore. So he wanted to be a big boy and branched out on his own and went and lived with his grandma and became a man at a very young age. And I believe he quit school, because he wanted to kind of branch out on his own and didn't want to really follow rules. So he was a bit of a rule breaker there. And my mom, she did finish high school. Her dad did ensure that she finished school. My mom grew up with her dad and her aunts. Her mom passed away when she was a very little girl.
Got it. Got it. So, all right. So it sounds like the first part of your journey is your mother made a critical decision, right? One, to go to the U.S. You never know how negative things sometimes can be turned into a positive. What if you didn't get hit by that car?
No, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
She
Yeah.
may not have sent for you as early as she did, and things could have ended up different. So you end up in what part of Brooklyn did you end up in?
So we started our journey in New York City in Park Slope, Brooklyn, on Vanderbilt Avenue, and between Park Place and Prospect Place. And so I remember the red brick building. It was about 6 stories tall. We had to climb 5 flights of stairs every day to
Yeah, I
get
know
in
those
and out.
buildings.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's huge, but huge apartment. I mean, had to be at least maybe about 1,800 square foot apartment. I mean, these
Wow.
were the old apartments in New York City that everyone is clamoring over, and they probably split into 2 or 3 right now.
Hmm.
So yeah, they don't exist anymore, but that's the apartment we grew up in. It was a lot of room, but not enough room for 5 kids, of course, right? So
That's a $3,000 a month apartment now.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what was the neighborhood like? I said it was pre-gentrified. So what's that mean?
Pre-gentrified, meaning it was a predominantly Black and Latino community, right? So everybody in our building was either of Caribbean descent or African American and or Dominican or Puerto Rican, mostly Puerto Rican for the most part.
Okay.
So you would always smell like different ethnic foods when you
Arroz
walk
con
in the
pollo.
door, or yeah, it could be curry, it could be arroz con pollo, it could be fried chicken. You never know what smells you're going to
Hmm.
get walking in that building. But and you always hear different types of music. I loved it. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better life at that point, right? I'm in a building with my mom and dad, and I was literally a block away from the school that I first started out at, PS9, where I entered in the second grade, I believe. That was their bilingual program that they had there. And it was perfect for me because English was not my first language. It was Spanish, right? So the bilingual program afforded me the ability to learning and perfect the English language, as well as be able to speak in Spanish when I needed to, when I didn't quite comprehend the lesson in English. I loved it. I loved the school. I loved the community. It was amazing to me. It was like a bright, shiny stars, right?
Yeah. So culturally, it sounds like the building and the neighborhood was a great place to be. And finding a bilingual education was a blessing as well. But, just kind of the other aspect of pre-gentrified Brooklyn was sometimes you go outside, it's not that safe, right?
Oh, absolutely not. So, like I said, being pre-gentrified and being surrounded by the elements outside those doors, of course, you had to deal with, at that time there were lots of gangs, mostly, from the Hispanic community, unfortunately. And just walking to school was a hazard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom and dad took turns when I was that little, and I was the only one here without my siblings at the time. They would take turns walking me to school and picking me up in the afternoons to make sure that I arrived safely. I remember there was one time when my mom and I saw a young lady getting her jewelry snatched away
Mm-hmm.
from her, like her neck, and
That was the thing.
stuff stolen. And I mean, it was just like, for me, I was pretty familiar with violence growing up in Cologne, but I just thought that moving to New York City, moving to the States, I wouldn't see those things anymore. But it was still something that I was like, okay, I guess this is just a part of life. It's just something that I have to deal with. Right.
Yeah, because at that point you hadn't seen anything different.
No,
right?
not at all. I was used to it. Yeah, Cologne
Yeah.
was the exact same way. I was used to the violence.
Yeah. So, but I think the next stage is when you end up at, when you said PS9.
Yeah, I ended up. So we moved. Right. What transpired right after shortly was my mom and dad were able to save up enough money to basically migrate all my siblings to New York City from Panama.
Wow.
Yeah. So the other four came. We all went to school close to Park Slope, but we pretty much outgrew that apartment and we needed our own home. And so my dad, working in construction, worked for a white gentleman that was able to find us a home in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And that home provided us the ability to spread out a little bit. So we had a basement. It was a 3-story walk up, not a brownstone, but a row house on Park Place between Utica and Schenectady. And that's home for my mom to this day. And that's where I grew up for the most part from the age of 8, I would say, up until I went to college. So that was home for us, and wasn't much better than Park Slope in terms of the violence around us, but at least we were all in a home that we could call our own at that point.
Yeah, Crown Heights wasn't an easy place either. For those who know Brooklyn now, Crown Heights is a predominantly Caribbean and Orthodox Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it just shows you the melting pot that is Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me about 3rd grade and 4th grade. Something significant happened around that time, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right around when I was getting out of the bilingual program, out of the 2nd grade class, the teachers kind of found out that I was learning the English language a lot faster than my peers were. And they decided to transition me out of that bilingual class at PS9. And then when we moved, they made a recommendation for my mom to put me in a school called PS 243. And they put me in a traditional English class at the time. I didn't need to be in the bilingual transition class anymore. And so at 243 in 3rd grade, I got tested for the gifted program in New York City's gifted program. And I guess I did pretty well. So they were able to identify another school for me to go to after the 4th grade, which will start my middle school journey. And that school was located in Bedford-Stuyvesant, in that part of Brooklyn.
What's the nickname for Bed-Stuy?
Do or Die.
There you go.
Do or Die Bed-Stuy. That's not something that, a lot of people know unless you live there, right?
Now it's called Stuyvesant Gardens, by the way.
Oh, my goodness. That's ridiculous. It's not what I remember it as. But yeah, right around there in the 4th grade, after I finished the 4th grade at 243, I started 5th grade in 308. And 308 was just phenomenal. The school was full of kids that thought like me, were aspirational. It was a college-bound school. We had a phenomenal principal, Ms. Castro. And she wanted to make sure that all her students were college bound.
What's interesting is the fact that you came from Panama, you had English as a second language, and somehow tested in the 4th grade to get moved to gifted and talented. To me, that's amazing. And I guess another one of the turning points in your journey is the fact that you got into gifted and talented. There's a lot of controversy around gifted and talented in New York City right now because of the fact that there's a racial inequality with gifted and talented. 70% of gifted and talented is now Asian and white, while the population of New York, 70% is Black and Latino, right? So it's interesting that, and there's a lot of discussions of why that is. A lot of folks say it has to do with the testing that occurs. That can be a whole separate podcast on how to reform gifted and talented so that everyone gets equal access to it. But we'll save that for another time.
Yeah. I have my views on that as well.
Right. I think we probably have another podcast just to talk about that. But the fact that you got in is a testament to the value as we continue to have this conversation of how that can change people's lives if they get into that program.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, absolutely. I can't tell you where I would be if I hadn't got into that program that afforded me the ability to go to a magnet school is what they called it back then at the time, because without that school, without that level of just focus, right, I can't imagine where I would be with the elements surrounding all the schools that I attended.
So you went to Bed-Stuy, and I guess with gifted and talented, they always sort of got in your mind that you're going to go to college. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. So 308, IS 308 was a public school and an intermediate school. So you can start in kindergarten there at the time. I started in 5th grade, like I said, transitioning out of my local area school. Took a bus there. So the school brought kids from a lot of the closer vicinities to the school. So Crown Heights, they picked us up right on Utica Avenue and Prospect Place. There were some other buses that picked some other kids up, mostly around Bed-Stuy, or maybe even they went out as far as Williamsburg, I believe. There was a bus that went there and got some kids. I don't know how my mom got this program or the information for this program. I just believe it was the teachers that I had. They were just wonderful. They probably fell in love with me. And the fact that I did my job. I did my job at school as a student and took tests really well. And I just loved school. I was a really passionate learner. So they told her about this program, and we got in, and we were just super fortunate for me to go to this magnet school. But like I said, the principal, Ms. Castro, assured us that we were getting a quality education. I remember taking a class called Ethnic Studies in 5th grade. And the teacher there showed up as like a professor every day, showed up like a Morehouse man in his suit and tie, his 3-piece suit. And he told us that we were something special to deal with, that we're outputting great inputs into the world, was his statement. Right. And, we got language. You had to take a language. You had to master that language. It was almost an immersion program. I never forget my French teacher, Miss Anthony. I took French because I already knew Spanish, right? So they offered French and Spanish. And I never forget her. She immersed us in that French culture and bought foods for us from, that would be French cuisine. She spoke French in the classroom, and we had to figure out what she was saying. So that was amazing. We had an immersive science program with live animals. I remember I was the only person that was able to, pick the snakes up and put them back into the tank. Computer science lab. I mean, exposure that normal kids in Brooklyn and regular public schools were not getting. The library was a requirement, so books and reading were a requirement. And we really didn't focus on testing that much, but everyone tested well because we were exposed to so much writing and math, advanced mathematics. So we were getting pretty much a high school education in elementary and middle school.
That's fantastic. It goes back, and I say it every podcast, if you can see it, you can be it. So
absolutely,
they exposed you to worldly things and what was possible.
Absolutely.
So remind me, was it junior high school or was it high school where I guess you were challenged by some neighborhood kids and you had to throw some hands?
Oh man, it was my entire school career, to be honest with you. It started in elementary school. It started at the neighborhood school. One day I didn't like a little boy, and he beat me up because I didn't like him, right? On my way home, I'm walking, and I just remember getting hit from behind. Yeah. And then in middle school, of course, that was my most challenging era because I would get on that bus. It was a yellow bus. And if you wanted to be cool, you don't get on a yellow bus and go anywhere, right? You either took the public transportation or you walked. So I definitely was not cool, and I didn't want to be uncool, right? I wanted to be like the regular kids on the block. I didn't want to be identified as the smart girl. And, but my mother made sure that, I didn't hang out with, anyone that was not interested in going to school or attending school. So she made me stick to my guns and get on that bus, right? As much as I didn't want to be seen as uncool. So what would happen to me when I would get off the bus is there would be some local girls and even some boys sometimes waiting for us to get off that bus. The uncool kids, and they'd be like, hey, you nerds, and just at the time, and just start to wailing, and I literally had to fight back.
Wow.
So I remember the one thing that sticks with me to this day is I had a bunch of books in my backpack getting off the bus, and one of the girls just pulled my backpack down, and I fell on the floor, and I really couldn't lift myself up. And once I finally got on hold of the backpack, I was able to fight back fairly, but I never took home that many books again, right? I either left them at school or left them home and figured out how to do my homework at that point without the books.
Can't let them weigh you down.
Exactly.
Use them as a weapon.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are not fond memories of the neighborhood that I grew up in or the neighborhoods that I went to school in, because just getting in the building was a challenge. We had police. We had security guards. I remember one guy, he was dressed as a ninja, and I have a ninja. Like he had like these shoes that had, I don't know what you call them, but they had the split toe.
Yeah.
And I remember being fascinated by that. I'm like, what is he going to do with these split toe shoes with the people with the knives outside? Like, what is he going to do with that?
That's back when Bruce Lee was hot. So everybody was trying to be like Bruce Lee.
But he was one of our, security guards at 308 in Bed-Stuy. And we were just fascinated by him. But yeah, the school hired, people just so that we wouldn't have to deal with the elements outside and just make sure we arrived in the building safely off that bus. Or, if you were walking to the school, that you, cross the street safely and everything. But, we were a very well-known school at the time, for having all the smart kids, and the neighborhood kids just didn't get into that school.
Yeah. So the school was a sanctuary.
Absolutely.
And it was like going through a little bit of a war zone just to get there. But once you got there, you could sort of breathe easy.
You can breathe, let go for a little bit until you had to go back out there and deal with the elements.
Yeah, which isn't the case for a lot of kids, because a lot of kids, the war zone's in the school and outside the school too, right? Now, I was fascinated with your high school because I never heard the name of it before, but I did a little bit of research on it. Tell me a little bit about the high school.
Oh, wow. Again, a place that I love to go to each and every day. A. Philip Randolph Campus High School. I can't say enough about it. To be honest, I'm still very, very close with a lot of my high school friends to this day. We still talk every day. It was a very small community, a very tight-knit school. The way you got in, you tested into one of 3 programs. There was more of a entrepreneurship, or they called it business school. There was an engineering and what they called a Macy medical program. Now, I tested into the Macy medical program because at the time I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so you got into one of those 3 programs and attended the school. It was very small. My graduating class was 80 people. The school was pretty much only about 3 or 4 years old when I started. So we were probably the 3rd or 4th graduating class. Yeah. And it sits right on City College campus. You couldn't ask for a better view. You couldn't ask for a more beautiful building. But like I said, at the time, going to school in Harlem and, going through Spanish Harlem to get there, or going through the stairs on 145th Street, it wasn't very pleasant either.
Yeah, I did a bit of research of who A. Philip Randolph was, because I hadn't heard his name before. And apparently he was a labor leader and a civil rights activist.
Oh, absolutely. He marched hand in hand with Martin Luther King, very famous civil rights activist. One of the things about all my schools is ethnic studies, like I said, was drilled into us very early. So we knew who people like A. Philip Randolph was at an early age. I knew who he was when I was going to that high school and applying to that high school. And I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be affiliated with someone who was strong, powerful, and fought for labor laws and, fought for his people in the civil rights movement as well.
Yeah, they say he's one of the principal organizers of the March on Washington in 1963.
Yep.
And when you look at the mission of the school, is to provide the highest quality education to public high school students in order for them to be able to succeed and compete in colleges and universities. So, their goal is to get you to the next step.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Again, another college-bound program.
Yeah.
Pretty much every student in the school was either going to college or knew what path they wanted to end up in. And like I said, we're still all pretty tight. And I got to tell you, the success rate of the graduates that graduated from A. Philip Randolph is amazing. I mean, we're talking about, like, I have a colleague who's the head of UPS right now, and doctors, lawyers, and engineers, of course. It's a super successful program. I can't say enough about it. Again, another strong Black female principal. It didn't allow us to deal with the elements. It stood her ground and treated us as her own children. She even had her son attend the school. So
that says a lot, right?
Yeah.
Principal in public school.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Lottie Taylor was the principal there at the time, and her son was one of my classmates, and he attended, and he was right in the mix with us. One of the things that all these schools did for us was, like I said, the exposure was amazing. So A. Philip Randolph, sitting on the campus of City College of New York, afforded us the ability to take college classes once you got up into the junior, senior years. And so by the time you graduated, you'd have a few college credits and an intro to college, and seeing what that life was like. We couldn't wait to go. So that was the most important aspect of attending a school like that.
All right, so let's talk about college. What was that college admission process like for you?
So, it's funny, John. One of the things that was most impressive about the college admissions process for me is, I'll never forget, I had a college counselor, and I told him, I was like, I think I want to be an engineer. And he's like, are you sure you don't want to be a teacher? And I'm like, what? No, I mean, I like teaching people, but I don't think I want to be a teacher. I mean, I am at the specialized high school, and I won't state his name. I'll leave that off the record, but definitely thought that it was pretty interesting, considering he was at the school with inner city kids majoring in engineering and medicine. So why would you discourage that? And so,
it's a little odd.
It's a very, very odd statement for someone like that. And
a whole nother podcast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so in any case, I said no. I stood my ground. And so one of the great things about A. Philip Randolph is they would bring schools in to recruit us. And they brought in a couple of schools, a couple of SUNY schools, some of the private schools in New York City and surrounding areas upstate. And I got recruited for Binghamton University. The recruiter came, I never forget, and she introduced us. I'd never heard about Binghamton, of course, but I knew it was upstate New York. I knew it was 4 hours away from the city, and I got intrigued by that. So I was ready to go. And once I applied, and of course I applied to more than just the SUNY schools, I applied to private universities. One thing I didn't apply to, though, John, was HBCUs, and that's just because we didn't have the exposure to the HBCUs in New York City unless your parents went there or they were affiliated with it. I know a couple of my friends went to like Howard and Fisk and Spelman and Morehouse, but they got on the bus and went through the tours. And that's kind of how we got the exposure to those HBCUs, but it really wasn't talked about much in New York City.
Yeah, I can agree. I really didn't hear much about HBCUs when I was in the school system there either, which is, a little bit strange, but topic for another podcast, I guess. We'll put that on the pile.
We got quite a few. But in any case, I ended up at Binghamton University, and I accepted the offer, a full ride. I got in through an educational opportunity program. It's called EOP. Okay. EOP, yes. So what EOP, like I said, was an educational opportunity program. It was for inner city kids. You either had to be very smart, so you had to have high grades and low income, or both, right? So one of the two. The low income gave you the opportunity to attend what they called a SUNY Ivy League school, which Binghamton is highly ranked, right, as
Okay.
one of the
Hmm.
public schools. And you got into this pre-program that they put you through in the summer, and to kind of immerse you into the college experience before school actually started. And that was one of the requirements of the program, in order to adjust and, get used to being out of the city and get used to, the rigor of college and coursework and handing in papers on time and things like that. So the summer program was an excellent opportunity to immerse you into college as you would know it.
Yeah, that's been a also a trend in some of the conversations that I've been having is these programs that allow you to get a preview of what you're in for, so you can prepare and also make you aware of what the possibilities are. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Exposure to different majors. And yeah, we had sessions with, different upperclassmen that were already, attending the school, and expose you to the different majors that they were, pursuing. It was pretty cool.
so you spent 4 years at Binghamton. You had a great time, right?
I actually did not spend 4 years
What?
at Binghamton. Yeah, so I transferred out of Binghamton after my sophomore year.
What
That's
happened?
another story for another podcast.
Okay.
But the engineering program, I was one of two women there.
Hmm.
I remember my friend and I were struggling. We were like not quite getting the program. It was very rigorous, and we're seeking help. And I did get help, actually. I was in NSB, I was in other programs to kind of help me, but just felt lost and alone. And then once my friend quit, I'm like, man, that's it. I'm out of here, right? I
So
have
then you were
no one to,
the
I
last
have
one
no one to
standing. Yeah,
identify this
right.
experience with, and hold hands with, and anything like that. I had great friends there, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't feel like I belonged. I mean, it was 3% Black. The Black community was very tight. We had a great community. But for what I wanted to do and the major that I wanted to pursue, I just felt like I was on an island by myself.
I just want to clarify. You said NSB, and some
Yeah.
folks may be saying,
Yeah,
well,
so
what the heck
NSB
is
is the
that?
National Society for Black Engineers,
Hmm.
and you start that at a collegiate level. Actually, there's junior NSBs now that you can start at a younger age, but I didn't learn about it until college, and so it prepares you to be surrounded with individuals like yourself, and you're in an engineering program and you're Black, and so it kind of provides you with this kind of cohort to some extent,
Yeah.
where you can be around people that are pursuing engineering and they happen to be African American minorities as well.
Yep. Very familiar with the program. I was internal vice president of my chapter
Nice.
back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. All right. So what happened after Binghamton? Where'd you end up?
So I ended up transferring to University of Maryland, in College Park, and I pursued a computer science degree there. And I did so much better. When I was at Binghamton, my grades kind of fell off a little bit because I pledged a sorority.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reason why they fell off. They fell off because I was just not focused, right?
Right.
And so the lack of focus, the lack of feeling the support that I needed, and just, feeling a little lost and out of place in this place that was 4 hours away, first time away from home. There was just a lot going on and a lot for me to take in, a lot of responsibility. And so I had to get myself together. So the summer of my sophomore year, when I came home, I said, you know what, I'm going to transfer schools, and I am going to make sure that I focus. So I did end up transferring, and I got into Maryland, and I was able to work at the help desk there at University of Maryland. And it gave me exposure to computer science world that I hadn't been exposed to before in terms of majoring in it. And I met some pretty cool people, and they kept me motivated. And, I was able to graduate from there with a comp sci degree. So it was a great transition for me to get out of New York for the first time.
Yep.
And two, allow me to really, really focus. So that's the only reason I think I graduated college, getting out of New York City.
Yeah, that helps to give people focus, like you said, and be exposed to different things. So you graduate from University of Maryland. Then what happens?
So while I was at Maryland, like I said, I was working at the help desk there, and one of the guys that I worked at the help desk with, I never forget him. He was like, do you want to work at a startup with me? And I'm like, what does it entail, right? So this is in Annapolis, Maryland, and this is definitely like a startup, like mom and pop. I was employee number 4. And once I decided to go ahead and go, we left the help desk together and started at this mom and pop shop in Annapolis, Maryland. And I mean, when I tell you, I did everything from running cable, Cat 5 cable, Cat 3 cable, to building computers, to building desktops for their customers. And we did everything. It was called Real Computing Systems. And yeah, we installed software. Yeah, I connected networks together at the time using Novell. And
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
Novell networks, yeah, of course, Microsoft, and I did some Cisco, basic stuff there. And it exposed me to everything that you could, soup to nuts, about computing and about software. And I did some scripting for some customers as well. And so while I was at that job, John, I think I was running some cable at a building in Washington, D.C. for Real Computing Systems one day. And when
you were lifting up floor tiles?
I was lifting up floor tiles. I was actually small enough to fit into the in the areas. So they absolutely loved me. They were like, Edilsa can get up there and crawl. She won't fall through. Oh gosh, that was the best. I had a good time. I learned a lot, and I had fun doing it. I didn't mind getting my hands dirty. And, it was untraditional to see someone like me. Here I am, this young Black kid from New York City working at a mom and pop shop, employee number 4. There was John, his wife, and my colleague that brought me over, all 3 of them white, and then me. And they absolutely love me and I absolutely love them. And we just worked together extremely well. And so when I told them that I was going to quit to go work for a real company, they were extremely heartbroken. But it wasn't that I didn't enjoy what I did. I got an opportunity to go work for a consulting company. So I jumped all over that.
So that's when you started to turn into a unicorn.
That's when the unicorn, I guess, transpired.
Yeah. So how'd you end up at Cisco?
After my consulting gig and I moved from Maryland and then back to New York, I did a couple of, transitions in between. I ended up at Cox Enterprises as a company after that. And I started doing Cisco networking right early in career, right? So I might have been 24, 25, and I was working at Ernst & Young at the time, actually. And when I worked at Ernst & Young, they started this group that allowed us to transition their traditional PBXs over to voice over IP, this brand new thing that no one ever heard of. And Cisco had just bought this company called Celsius.
Wait. You worked on that project?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. See, I had E&Y as my account at that time.
No idea.
I sold that into E&Y.
No idea.
Yes.
No idea, John. This is crazy.
We didn't even talk about this.
We didn't even talk about that. No, we didn't get that far. Nope.
No, that's crazy. So what did you do?
So I was responsible. So we split up the responsibilities, and my job was to configure all the switches for voice at the time. So,
did you work with Jeff Tromboli?
Yes, I did work with Jeff Tromboli.
See how it's a small world?
Small world. So yeah, there was a team of us, and I think there was 6 of us, of course. Again, I'm the only, female and working with all these guys, and we're going all over the country transitioning these UI offices. And I had such a great time doing that. When the project was done, I was like, I don't want to do anything else, right? This is what I want to do. And I remember E&Y sold off after that, because that was the whole purpose, right? They sold off their consulting arm to
Yeah.
Capgemini.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I worked at Capgemini for a while, and I just really didn't like the culture. And I wanted to continue to do what I was doing on that VoIP transition project, and started looking for, an opportunity to continue to do that. And that's how I ended up at Cox Enterprises. And Cox Enterprises had some old traditional Cisco, their very first version of Cisco Voice, which was like Call Manager 3.1.
Yeah.
And they needed
it was a Windows.
Exactly. And they needed help, getting them up to speed at the newspaper, at the AJC at the time. And that's kind of where I came in and helped. Of course, having all this experience with the VoIP migration project. And I led them to their transition as well, all over the US. And I did it all over again. And so I was doing this for so long, and working with Cisco and making my account manager that ran the Cox account team. I made her a very rich person. And she was like, man, you just need to come work at Cisco, because you just love this stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I need to go work at Cisco. And she forwarded me some opportunities. I think there was an opportunity for, they called it at the time a business transformation consultant, or something called BTS or something. I applied for that role, and I did not get that role because they hired someone internally. But one of the hiring managers reached out to me after that interview, and he's like, Edilsa, I'm so impressed. And you went to Georgia Tech. Of course, at the time I attended Georgia Tech and had graduated. And he's like, I love Georgia Tech. Not to mention, you have a lot of experience with Cisco telephony. And we have an opportunity on one of our accounts here locally in Atlanta. And I would love for you to join the account team there. So I interviewed with the Coca-Cola account team, and I interviewed with Shelly Blackburn. She was the one that was responsible for making the decision to hire me for Cisco. And I came on board and didn't look back. Been here ever since.
So what role were you hired in?
I was hired in as a systems engineer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Although I was already kind of managing a team at Cox, and I didn't really look at it as a step down, John, but just more of a step over. To get into the company that I believed in and I had been doing business in for so long, right, in my career. So I took it as an opportunity to learn some new skills and, develop some sales experience as well. And going back to what I looked at, more of a consulting role that I love to do anyway.
So going into leadership at Cisco, was it new?
Not at all. Not at all. I actually loved leading team. I mean, I had been part of, leading a team and doing all these great large migrations for so long. I actually missed that too. But one of the things that made me most successful at Cisco was, I came from a customer working with account teams. You understood
their perspective.
And I understood the customer perspective. So one day I'm sitting in the office at Coca-Cola, and customer is very irate. And he's like, you guys are not getting what I'm asking for. And I actually said, give me a minute with this was the network manager at the time at Coca-Cola. And I asked him to step outside the room. I said, what is it that you're looking for? Right? Because I just left Cox and I know exactly what you're going through in terms of asking the questions, and no one's kind of figuring out what you need. And he kind of explained to me what he was looking for. And I said, okay, no worries. We'll have a session, and, you and I kind of sit together and put all this to paper. And just that action alone increased our satisfaction scores from 3 to I guess the highest you can get is a 5.
Right.
And that's really what transpired me as a leader, because I think at the time my SEM was like, wow, you really get the customer. And I'm like, yeah, well, I kind of know what they want. Just left there. And
you had the empathy.
I had the empathy, and I had the, I guess, just, the experience of knowing what I want for what I wanted for myself when I was a customer. And that's really what transpired me into pursuing a management role, because I wanted to make sure that people knew what the customer wanted. and I wanted to lead teams in that direction. And it's still something that I lead with today. Let's make the customer extremely happy, even if it's not Cisco, even if it's not what we offer. Let's get them to the point where they're good.
So that brings us up to present day. So just reflecting back, you've been through a lot. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, you never have to apologize to anyone about your purpose or your passion. Because a lot of times when I was younger, I used to say I'm sorry a lot for being passionate and maybe overstepping the boundaries a bit, and not knowing my place. I don't apologize anymore. Now I'm like, I'll ask for forgiveness later.
So what resources would you recommend to a young girl who finds herself as an immigrant in New York City or any other major city around there and is looking to pursue a career in science, technology, and math, or any other career?
You can't do it alone. That's the advice I would give the young girl. Please find someone to latch on to, or a ton of people to latch on to. I can't take credit for getting where I am without the people that I lean to guide me. And there was tons of people that are involved in my career journey. Too many to mention, but they know who they are. They know that they're important to me. I have a village. I have a board of directors. There are people that I met along the way here at Cisco and outside of Cisco. And they've helped me in this journey. And I leaned on them professionally, personally, for counsel. And so that's what I would tell a young girl. I mean, seek those mentors. When you're in those programs like I was in tons of programs growing up, right? Just by being in those schools that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And there were people there that I leaned on. And so that's my advice to a young girl. Don't lean on yourself. Find a village, find people to lean on, and seek advice, seek mentorship, seek sponsorship. Can't do it alone.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. As I said before, the theory of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that's a myth, right? It takes a village. It takes people that support you. So as we reflect back on your main turning points, being from Panama, the unfortunate incident of getting hit by a car was a turning point. It got you to be brought to the States earlier rather than later. I think it's incredible that you got into the gifted and talented program at that age that you did, especially given the fact that English was a second language at the time. That puts you on a very definitive path to success because there seemed to be that sanctuary and nurturing environment that you had all the way from, I guess, fourth grade through high school.
Absolutely.
That gave you that mindset that college is my next step. We didn't talk about the influence of your dad and how he got you into science and math, right? Given that he was in construction and you saw him a genius in putting things together. There were also the teachers that took interest in you. And of course, that's the schools that you went to and the curriculum in those schools. That's what I got from today in terms of the turning points and the major influences. Anything else you think significant that I'm missing?
Yeah, I know we didn't touch on, the fact that me watching my dad doing construction and watching him build things was the fact that that's kind of what lit a spark in me. My brother is also an engineer. He works for Nutanix. He's at Nutanix. And so he was a big influence on my career and jumping into engineering as well. When I was in several summer so part of my summer job experience, of course, everyone in New York City had a summer job. So one of those summer jobs was working at the Board of Education in New York, and just watching my brother, he worked there at the time, operate and be the kind of IT guy that everyone looked up to, kind of motivated me to pursue a career in IT as well. So he's one of the major influences as well.
All right. So amazing story. Amazing story. So what I learned from all these inspiring stories is that none of these journeys are traveled alone. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of support along the way, whether it's individuals, organizations, sometimes a little luck or a little bad luck. It also requires persistence and tenacity. You went to Binghamton and said, well, it's not going so well, but I'm going to keep on. Mm-hmm. You went to University of Maryland, so you had that desire to succeed. So with that, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you were able to get something out of this conversation that you can use in your life or inspire you to help someone else in theirs. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, leave a review, share this podcast with someone who you think might benefit. And Edilsa, thanks again for participating.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for listening.